Something unprecedented is happening right now while most of the world is distracted, while news channels obsess over political headlines and peace negotiations in the Middle East. A prophetic clock is ticking louder than ever before. The actions taking place in Jerusalem, the Abraham Accords, the moving of America's embassy to Israel's capital, these are not merely political moves. They are prophetic markers that a humble man named William Branham warned about decades before any of us witnessed them unfolding. In June of 1933, long before Israel became a nation again, a young preacher received 7 visions that shook him to his core. Brother Branham was only 24 years old when God pulled back the curtain and showed him what was coming for America and for the world. He saw these visions so clearly that he wrote them down and told his congregation about them. And here is what is remarkable. 6 of those 7 visions have already happened exactly as he described them. The 7th is unfolding before our eyes right now. Brother Branham preached about these visions throughout his entire ministry. In his sermon titled The 70 Weeks of Daniel, preached in 1961, he explained how Israel would be the key to understanding prophetic timing. He taught that when Israel became a nation again in 1948, God's prophetic clock started running again after nearly 2,000 years of silence. Every movement in Israel, every treaty, every leader who touches that land is part of God's blueprint for the end times. And now, with everything happening in the Middle East, we are watching prophecy unfold in real time. Think about it for a moment. A man who walked on dirt roads in southern Indiana with barely a 7th grade education spoke with prophetic precision about events that would not happen for 30, 40, even 50 years into the future. He did not make lucky guesses. He carried a gift that discerned the thoughts and intentions of hearts. And when he spoke about the future, heaven itself confirmed his words through signs and wonders that doctors and scientists could not explain. Let me tell you exactly what Brother Branham saw in those 7 visions back in 1933, because every word matters and every detail has proven to be true. He reported these visions throughout his ministry, particularly in his 1960 sermon titled Trying to Do a Service to God Without Being in the Will of God, and again in other messages where he reminded his congregations that God had shown him these things decades before they happened. The first vision showed Mussolini invading Ethiopia and then coming to a shameful end with his own people turning against him. Branham said he would see Mussolini's body in the streets, and that is exactly what happened in 1945 when Italian partisans killed him and hung his body upside down in a public square in Milan. The second vision revealed Adolf Hitler rising to power and leading Germany into a Second World War, and it showed the Maginot Line, that fortification France thought would protect them, but failed. Both visions happened with stunning accuracy. The third vision showed 3 great isms: fascism, Nazism, and communism, and how all of them would eventually come together in a unified system. Brother Branham taught that communism would eventually absorb the others, and he watched this happen in his lifetime as the Soviet Union grew in power after World War II. The fourth vision revealed tremendous scientific advancement, and he specifically mentioned seeing American family cars shaped like eggs coming down highways, controlled by some form of remote guidance. Remember, this was 1933, long before anyone imagined autonomous vehicles or the aerodynamic designs we see today. The fifth vision shook him deeply because it showed the moral condition of the world, particularly regarding women and modesty. He saw women wearing clothes that barely covered their bodies, and the rise of what he called a spirit of immorality that would sweep across America. He did not preach this to judge anyone, but to warn that when you see these signs, you are looking at prophetic markers of the end times that Jesus himself spoke about in Matthew 24. The sixth vision showed him a beautiful woman rising to power in America, but with a cruel and wicked heart. He taught that this represented either a literal woman in high political office or the Catholic ecclesiastical system gaining control over American politics. The seventh and final vision was the most serious of all. He saw America completely destroyed by explosion and fire, burned to the ground with nothing but smoking ruins. If this is speaking to your heart right now, leave a comment below and share where you are watching this message from. 6 of those 7 visions have already happened exactly as Brother Branham described them. And the 7th is about what we need to talk about next, because what is happening with Israel and global politics is now setting the stage for that final vision to be fulfilled. Here is where everything Brother Branham taught enters into focus with what we are seeing today. He preached extensively about Israel throughout his ministry, and one of his fundamental teachings was simple but profound. If you want to know what time it is on God's prophetic clock, do not look to Washington or Moscow or London. Look to Jerusalem. Look to Israel. That small nation is the key to understanding where we are in God's timeline. On May 14th, 1948, something happened. Something that had not occurred for almost 2,000 years. Israel became a nation again. Brother Branham saw this as one of the most significant prophetic events in human history. In his sermon, The Masterpiece, preached in 1964, he taught that when the Jewish people returned to their homeland and raised their flag again, God's prophetic clock started ticking after centuries of silence. The times of the Gentiles, that long season about which Jesus spoke in Luke's Gospel, was coming to an end. Brother Branham constantly referenced Jesus' teaching about the fig tree in Matthew chapter 24. Jesus said to his disciples, "Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When its branch is still tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, know that it is near, right at the door. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have happened." Branham taught that the fig tree represented Israel, and when you see that nation sprouting again, coming back to life, you are looking at the final generation before Christ's return. He preached about Daniel's prophecy of the 70 weeks, explaining how 69 of those weeks were fulfilled when Jesus was crucified. But one final week, 7 years of tribulation, still remains. And this final week could not begin until Israel was back in her land, because Daniel's prophecy concerned specifically God's people and his holy city, the Jewish people and Jerusalem. Everything in end times prophecy revolves around that city and that nation. This is why the actions of Donald Trump with Israel carry such prophetic weight. When he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel in 2017, moving the American embassy there in 2018, he was not just making a political statement. Whether he understood it or not, he was aligning America with God's prophetic purposes for that nation. The Abraham Accords that brought historic peace agreements between Israel and Arab nations. These are not random political achievements. These are prophetic puzzle pieces fitting together exactly as the Bible described. Throughout 2020, what experts said was impossible happened. The Abraham Accords brought the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan into formal peace agreements with Israel, nations that had refused to recognize Israel's right to exist for 70 years. This was not just diplomacy. This was a seismic shift in the spiritual and prophetic landscape of the Middle East, and Donald Trump was at the center of facilitating these historic agreements. Now here is where the current moment becomes absolutely critical to understand. JERED Kushner, Trump's Jewish son-in-law, played the architect's role in creating the Abraham Accords during Trump's first term. He's described as the administration's Swiss Army knife diplomat, willing to fly anywhere and negotiate with anyone to advance the peace process. But Kushner's role has evolved. Recently, in October of 2025, Kushner re-emerged from behind the scenes to take center stage in brokering what many are calling the most significant peace achievement in modern Middle East history, a comprehensive Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal that has fundamentally shifted regional dynamics. Brother Branham taught extensively about God's promise to Abraham in Genesis 12:3, where the Lord said, "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." He emphasized that this was not merely an Old Testament principle that expired. This is an eternal covenant that still applies today. Any nation, any leader, any person who blesses Israel positions themselves for God's blessing. Anyone who curses Israel positions themselves for God's judgment. In his sermon, Israel and the Church, Branham taught about the restoration of Israel and how the Gentile nations would play a role in God's end times purposes. He explained that while the church age was given to the Gentiles, God never forgot his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The restoration of Israel was not just a political movement. It was the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy, where God said he would bring his people back from all the nations where they had been scattered and plant them in their own land again. When Trump moved the American embassy to Jerusalem in 2018, he did what no other American president had the courage to do for more than 70 years. Every president since 1948 had promised to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. But when pressure came from the international community, they all backed down. Trump did not. He stood firm, and in doing so, he aligned America with the purposes of God's covenant for that city. Jerusalem is not just another Middle Eastern capital. It is the city that God himself chose, the city where Jesus will establish his throne when he returns. The Abraham Accords did more than create political alliances. They opened doors for greater cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange between Israel and Arab nations. Most importantly, they normalized relations in a region that has been at war for generations. Brother Branham taught that before the final tribulation begins, there would be a season of relative peace in the Middle East, a false sense of security that would lead people to complacency. But now, in October of 2025, we are witnessing something even more dramatic. Kushner has led negotiations resulting in what Trump's administration calls a 20-point comprehensive peace plan. This historic agreement has freed hostages, initiated a ceasefire, and is being heralded as potentially transformative for the entire region. Kushner stands with Trump, speaking before Israel's Knesset, positioning himself as the central figure in what could be the prelude to even greater prophetic fulfillment. If this teaching is opening your eyes to what is really happening, share it with someone who needs to understand these prophetic times we are living in. Brother Branham preached one of his most powerful sermon series on the 7 church ages. And when he reached the church of Laodicea, the final age before Christ returns, his words carried a weight that is even more relevant today than when he first spoke them. He taught from Revelation 3:14-22, where Jesus described a church that was lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, rich and increased with goods, but spiritually naked, blind, and miserable. He said this described the condition of the church in our generation. In his sermon, The Laodicean Church Age, preached in 1960, Brother Branham warned that this final church age would be marked by compromise, worldliness, and a form of godliness that denied its power. He saw a church that had buildings, programs, and religious activities, but had pushed Jesus out the door. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus is outside his own church knocking, trying to get back in. That is the condition of the modern church. And we are watching it happen exactly as he warned. He taught that one of the clearest signs of the end times would be the collapse of moral standards, particularly in how people dressed, spoke, and behaved themselves. He was not being old-fashioned or critical. He was simply pointing to what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, that the days before his return would be like the days of Noah, when violence and immorality filled the earth and people's thoughts were only evil continually. Look around at our culture today and tell me we are not seeing exactly what he warned about. Brother Branham also preached extensively about signs in nature. He taught that when you see natural disasters increasing, earthquakes in different places, plagues, famines, these are not just random events. They are birth pangs, signaling that something is about to be born, that we are approaching the moment when Jesus breaks through the clouds to take away his bride. Each great earthquake, each pandemic, each natural disaster is creation itself groaning and suffering, waiting for the sons of God to be revealed. But here is what many miss in all of this. Brother Branham did not preach these signs to create fear. He preached them to create readiness, to awaken a sleeping church, to call a bride that would be watching and prepared when the midnight cry goes out. What is happening with Trump, Israel, peace agreements and global politics is not happening in a vacuum. It is all part of the final puzzle pieces fitting together before the greatest event in human history, the return of Jesus Christ for his church. Leave a comment and tell us if you are feeling the urgency of this hour, because what comes next demands that we be spiritually awake and ready. In December of 1965, just a few months before Brother Branham went home to be with the Lord, he preached one of his most urgent and powerful messages titled, The Rapture. In that sermon, he taught extensively about the parable of the 10 virgins from Matthew chapter 25, and he focused on verse 6, where it says, "And at midnight there was a cry made, 'Behold, the bridegroom comes, go out to meet him.'" He explained that we are living at the midnight hour now, and this cry is going out across the earth, calling the bride to awake and prepare herself. Brother Branham taught that the rapture is not something that will catch the bride by surprise. He said there would be 3 stages: a cry, a voice, and a trumpet. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17 describes it perfectly. The Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. He taught that the cry is the message going out right now, awakening the sleeping virgins, calling them to get oil in their lamps. But here is what is critical to understand. Brother Branham never set dates. He refused to predict the exact day or hour, because Jesus himself said, "No one knows the day or the hour." What he taught was that we can know the season, we can recognize the signs, we can see when things are lining up exactly as prophecy declared they would. When you see Israel back in her land, when you see peace agreements being made, when you see moral decay accelerating, when you see the church growing lukewarm, you are not looking at random coincidences. You are looking at prophetic road markers saying you are near, very near, the greatest event of human history. The bride that Jesus is coming to return for is not a denomination. It is not a building or an organization. It is individuals who have a personal, intimate relationship with him, people who live in holiness, watching, praying, and yearning for his coming. Brother Branham taught that this bride would be a people called out, separated from the world system, walking in the Spirit and demonstrating the same power and gifts that operated in the early church. She will not be perfect in the sense of sinlessness, but she will be perfected in love, purified by the blood of Jesus and walking in obedience to his word. Everything we have spoken about in this message, the 7 visions, the restoration of Israel, the role of Trump in peace agreements, the signs of the times, it all points to one conclusion. We are running out of time. The stage is set. The players are in position. The prophetic clock is ticking its final seconds before midnight. If you have been playing games with God, if you have been lukewarm in your faith, if you have been putting off full surrender of your life to Jesus, this is your wake-up call. The final message from Brother Branham to the church was simple but profound. Watch and pray. Be ready. Live each day as if it could be the day the trumpet sounds and the dead in Christ rise first. He taught that the bride of Christ would not be caught off guard, scrambling at the last minute trying to get right with God. She would be watching, waiting, yearning for his appearing, living in daily expectation that today could be the day heaven opens and Jesus breaks through the clouds. What we have shared with you today is not just history or theology. It is a living, pulsating, prophetic reality unfolding before your eyes right now. Every movement in Israel, every peace agreement, all the signs in the heavens and the earth, they are all crying out the same message. The King is coming, the bridegroom is at the door, the midnight hour has come, and the cry is going forth, "Behold, he comes." Brother Branham often quoted 2 Timothy 4:8, where Paul wrote, "From now on, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing." That phrase, love his appearing, that is the heart of a true bride. Not just believing he is coming, but loving the fact that he is coming, yearning for it, living for it every single day. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you are facing, I want you to know that God sees you. He knows your name. He knows your struggles, your doubts, your fears, and your faith. Leave your name in the comments below so we can lift you in prayer by name, because we are not just a channel, we are a family of believers united in these final hours. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who was spiritually sleeping and needs to wake up before it is too late. If you have not already, subscribe to this channel because we will continue bringing you prophetic teachings that reveal what God is doing on the earth right now. Click that notification bell so you do not miss any message, because what is coming in the days ahead is far too important to ignore. The same Jesus who saved you, who died for you, who rose on the third day, he is coming back for you. Not maybe, not hopefully, but certainly, absolutely, without question. And when that trumpet sounds, may he find you watching, praying, and ready to meet him in the air. God bless you, and may his Spirit revive your heart to the urgency and glory of this prophetic hour we are living in.